Hello, happy Sunday morning. It's Stephanie, your founder and executive director of USO LMT. And I wanted to just come on here really quick and talk to you about the Arizona State Board meeting. The meeting was on Monday, and I was not able to attend the board meeting. But in case you don't know, if you live in the state of Arizona, you can always get the board meeting minutes and recordings of the board meetings online. So if you just look up Arizona State Board of Massage meetings and just go to the date for the meeting, you can listen back to the recordings if you are interested in finding out what's going on with your board. But I am going to give you an update of what happened at our board meeting on Monday. So let's talk about it. So the first thing that happened during the meeting was a call to the public. And I'm really glad that what was brought up because I am one of the admins of the Massage Therapists of Arizona group. And we have been seeing for months and months people who say, hey, I went to renew my license and it didn't get renewed on time. Or they say, hey, I went to get my license and I still haven't heard anything. I keep calling and no one's answering the phone. I can't go down there. So how do I get answers from the state board? I'm emailing and no one's emailing me back. So we are very short staffed on our board in Arizona. Not the actual board, but the staff who supports the board is very short staffed. So two of the people who made a call to the public were talking about, one of them was from a massage school. They were talking about reviewing the process for applications, transcripts, and fingerprints. A lot of times the board will say, no, we can't process this because one of your documents is missing. And then later, they seem to have recovered the documents. The application status is really hard to get. And there have been times where, it's been a month since a fingerprint card or something was delivered to the board and they say they can't find it. And then all of a sudden they do find it. And so the school that was actually talking on this call for the public had gone and started actually doing hand delivering and doing receipt confirmations for the information that they were delivering to the board for new students to get licensed. But they said that it was taking 10 to 12 weeks for processing due to this backlog for COVID. Then they found out that the backlog for COVID was already cleared and that it should only be taking 1 to 2 weeks for processing licensing. And it's still taking a long time. There have been months of delay. There are very frustrated people in Arizona trying to get licensed and also trying to get renewals. So the process needs to be reviewed. And I'm glad that this was brought up on the call to the public. There was another person who was an owner of one of the Hand and Stone locations here who also backed that up, saying that they had hired people and they were waiting for them to start. But they had a problem with fingerprint cards as well, having them had to be resent, and that people, who had graduated with one of the people that they hired, all of their friends had gotten jobs already and been able to start, but this person was held back because apparently they lost her fingerprint card. So they just wanted to reiterate that the process needs to be reviewed as well. And thank goodness, because yeah, it really does. It's been a big challenge to all of us here in Arizona, and a lot of issues have been going on with that. So if you ever want to speak at a call to the public at your state board, it's really easy. Most of the time, you don't have to register. If you want to give like a longer presentation or talk for longer than 3 minutes or actually have a conversation with the board in Arizona, you do need to let them know ahead of time and have that approved by the board for you to be able to speak. But just for a simple call to the public, you can just, step up and say what your concerns are. And I've done it before, and I think that it's great. The board needs to hear from us what our concerns are. So anytime that there's an issue, you should come on the board meeting and actually respond when it comes to that call for the public. And those are usually at the very first part of the meeting. You don't have to stay the entire time, but at least you can show up and speak your piece. And usually you get about 3 minutes to talk. So I would highly encourage you to do that. The next thing that they were talking about, there were 4 cases. So this meeting was really long. It was like 4.5 hours long. 4 cases that they had reviewed. All of these were sexual in nature, inappropriate touch on the massage table. One of them I found really interesting. One of them was a licensing review. And the person who they were talking to, it said, I think they said he had been licensed as a massage therapist since 2011. And when he filled out his application to apply for massage therapy, he noted on his application that there were no disciplinary actions by any other boards previously. But this person had 2 felony charges against him when he was a physical therapist. And that was back in 2002. And his license was pulled from physical therapy. He voluntarily surrendered his license after he admitted to these charges that happened. And, in 2011, he was able to get a massage license. And the board did not know about his prior convictions. So, I do know that in Arizona, we do give second chances. So sometimes a person might have a felony conviction and they've been rehabilitated. And then there's a certain length of time, I believe, where they can get relicensed even if they've had some kind of issue like this. So that appears to be what happened with this person. And then the board found out about it. There was an investigation done. And there was another sexual abuse claim against this person as a massage therapist. And so they suspended his license, and I believe they're going to move to a formal hearing in February. So the other 2 were general cases, stuff that we hear all the time on board meetings about inappropriate touch on the massage table. And in the conversations, though, I wanted to mention that the consent came up. One of them said that the massage therapist had consent from the client to touch her. And so when we are on the table, we are vulnerable, right? I feel like people on the massage table don't really have the ability to stop things that they should be able to, because they're laying on a table naked with a stranger in most cases. And it usually leads to this like freeze response. And because of that, and the power differential that we have over our clients in massage therapy, this is a very touchy subject when it comes to consent, because this person in particular, who they were talking about, she had a loss in her family. There was something else that went on, and it made her even more vulnerable on the table. So she had been through some trauma. And when that happens and you're on a massage table, it's really hard to say no or stop what's happening in the moment. And so the board all agreed that because of that power dynamic, because of the power and control dynamic that's going on between the therapist and the client, that she wasn't really able to give consent on the table. And I don't think that most of our clients really can do that because of that power structure differential that we have going on. So it's something to really take into account with your clients. Your client needs to give you consent, informed consent, prior to the session. That's why we have informed consent forms, and that's why we have intake appointments. Okay. And obviously, you're not supposed to ask your clients if they are going to consent to any sort of sexual acts. So don't do that. But make sure that you're not putting your client in a position where they feel obligated to say yes, or they just don't know how to say no because they're on a massage table with a stranger and they're naked. So I think that's really important. And then some information came out about one of our state legislators, Jennifer Longden. She has a piece of legislation that's in the House right now for massage therapy. And this legislation is talking about making licensees submit fingerprint clearance cards. So these could be submitted while students were still in school, before they graduate, which might speed up the process of licensing and get licensings out a little bit faster. However, the whole goal of the legislation, it sounded like, was to get a deeper background check and a deeper history on the massage therapist or the potential massage therapist before they come out of school. But the investigator said that these fingerprint clearance cards would make it so that the board would not actually be able to see if there were any prior convictions of a person when they were applying for a massage therapy license. So in that aspect, it didn't really sound like a great idea to me, but something I think that they need to talk over a little bit more. He mentioned that when someone is convicted of prostitution, a lot of prostitution charges are felony charges at first, and then they are brought down to a misdemeanor, and then they're even brought down further into just a case of trespassing. And the board would not be able to see any of that if there were these prior fingerprint clearance cards. So the other thing that they brought up was that some state legislators are concerned that one set of fingerprints might not be enough. And I find that interesting. So this is my own personal opinion on that. Fingerprints last forever, right? So when you have a set of fingerprints, if you can actually keep those in a database, then why do you need to take them again? There's a cost to process them. And, there's another cost for renewals and constant fingerprinting when it comes to that. And I think that it just brings up the cost of being a massage therapist. That might not be necessary, but I know that one thing that happens is that the board can take your fingerprints, but I think they're only allowed to keep them for like a year. And I know that that happens in a lot of other locations, and that's why they want to take your fingerprints over and over and over. It seems to me that if we had those in a police database somewhere and the board was able to search that database and they were able to keep those for a longer amount of time, that they would not need to pass the cost on to us to be getting fingerprinted over and over and over again. So I'm interested to see how that turns out and if that is going to be passed and there's going to be more fingerprinting coming up for us in the state of Arizona. So there are a few states that definitely do fingerprinting every single time that you renew your license. So it's not unheard of. But I kind of hope that that doesn't happen. I hope that they're able to find another way around that where they can keep the fingerprints longer and it's not an issue. Because fingerprints don't change. And it just seems kind of redundant to keep having to do that when they could just keep the fingerprints on file longer, change legislation to make that happen instead of costing us more money. The next meeting is going to be on February 28th. Laura Allen is going to be presenting at this meeting, and she was on our podcast, the last podcast that we did 2 weeks ago. So Laura is a very long time massage therapy legend, and she's an author. She has a great blog that she was writing and keeping up with while she was in practice. She's owned a couple of she had a massage therapy practice that she built from the ground up. Anyways, she's amazing. So she's going to be actually on our state board meeting next time and going to be presenting on scope of practice and ethics. Now, if you come to our state of Arizona massage therapy board meetings once a year, you can get 3 continuing education credits just for being on the meeting. The meetings are virtual. They start at 9:00 in the morning. There's a little form that you have to fill out afterwards, and then you just send it to the board and you got your CE credits. So I would highly recommend doing that, especially when you can learn a little something while you're there. So Laura's great. I love her. Come to the meeting. And then there were a couple of agenda items that they had talked about adding to the agenda next time. One of them is putting photos on your license. Now, one of the things that we've experienced, even just the short 6 years that I've been in practice here, when I first got licensed, I would get a printed license. the board stopped printing licenses, and then they're just sending them to us by email now. And if we want something printed, we have to pay more. And if you do that, you get like a certificate that's printed out, and it's really nice, and you can hang it on your wall if you want to do that. So you get this like certificate license. They're talking about putting photos back on the license, which we used to have a long time ago, as before my time as a massage therapist, and what the cost of that would be. So apparently it's about $60,000 to add photos to our licenses. That would mean about a 20 to 22% increase in our board's budget, and possibly putting, so they talked about possibly putting the pictures on the website. And I would like to know how you feel as a massage therapist. Do you want your picture on the Arizona State Board of Massage Therapy website? I know that a lot of massage therapists do not like to have their pictures out there. I also know that even in workplaces, sometimes they don't want you to put their picture on the website. And so this would require that, and it would make it easier for clients to search to see if there have been any complaints against you as a massage therapist. So if you're concerned about that, come to the meeting and speak and say your piece. And I think that we all need to keep an eye on what's going on, because this is really going to affect us in the near future. If that passes, not only is your address going to be on the state board site, but your picture is also going to be on the state board site. So let's think about that and decide if that's something that we really want as massage therapists, and make sure that our voices are heard on that issue. The other thing is, they're going to talk about communication proficiency and communication requirements. So we have an English proficiency requirement in Arizona. I'm glad that they are bringing that up. I would like to see how that goes. So that's another topic of interest that you might find valuable to hear about in the state of Arizona. And then also licensing paperwork. So they were talking about maybe bringing the staff on and talking about staff shortages. Do they actually have the budget to cover another person or two people in their staff? We have 12,000 people who are actively licensed in Arizona, and it's a lot of work for one person or two people to just keep up with. And if they are going to redesign their website, if they're going to add our pictures, if they're going to process fingerprint clearing cards, that means that's a lot more work. So they are going to have to bring on more staff. And apparently our board is under audit, and it should be up in February. And at that time, we may be able to get more budget, but it really depends on what the governor's office is willing to support. So if the executive branch doesn't support adding more people to the staff, they don't support encouraging raising the budget for the State Board of Massage Therapy, then we may not be able to get that. So that's another thing. If you're in the state of Arizona and you feel that that's important, write to the governor and let them know. There are so many ways that you can get involved to actually help speed this process along and help make things better. And it's really important that you know what's going on, and that you do that. So if you need some help with that, email me, usolmt@gmail.com. If you want to do a collective letter, you want to do a petition, you want to do something like that, you want to call your governor's office, you don't know what to say, call me. I'll help you. Okay. And that's pretty much it. One more thing I wanted to mention about the fingerprint clearance cards. Another thing that this piece of legislation might do is to require employers to provide lists of all of the massage therapists that work for them. Now, I don't know if those lists will be public information. I don't know if they will be just given to the state board. I'm not really sure about that. So that's another thing to keep an eye on, especially if you are an employer. Do you want to report all of your employees publicly to the Arizona State Board of Massage Therapy? And do your employees want to have that be public information as well? Now, I'm not questioning anything that the board's doing. I think that a lot of the things that our board is doing is really just to serve to protect the public, but they also want to protect the economic interests of businesses in our field in Arizona. And so this is a balance of what, what should we require? What should we not require? And if it doesn't sound like it's going the way that you want it to go, you need to get involved, and you need to be able to speak. You need to be able to get your point across to the board, to the governor's office. Call Jennifer Longden, talk to her about this piece of legislation and how you feel about it. Because this stuff is highly likely to pass. And if you're okay with it, cool. If you're not okay with it, you need to let them know. Otherwise, they're not going to know. Okay. So anyway, the next board meeting again is February 28th. That is your state of Arizona board meeting update. And I will be back next time to talk to you. And I think the next board meeting that I am going to be on or listening to is for the state of Texas. So I will let you know when that comes up, and I will be here for you to fill you in. All right. You guys have a great day. Happy Sunday. Bye.